Take a trip with us to Nilbog. Just promise not to drink the goo.
Oh my God!
If you get sucked into the Matrix, we will send the phone for you.
Do you believe in fate?
But every movie has a plot hole, and every hole gets filled somehow. Whiskey, wine, or blue milk. Just don't cut me off right now. We're the Plotaholics, a breakfast club of two. We're the Plotaholics, ripping plots apart for you.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Hey everybody, welcome into another episode of the Plotaholics podcast, the finest podcast you can get anywhere. Brian?
Yeah, I'm on board with that.
Yeah, I'm joined as always by Mr. Tan, Brian Anthony Tanopoulos, heir to the Tanopoulos fortune.
That's right.
If only we could track down the rest of those Tanopoli.
I'm serious because
Tanopouloses?
Tanopalapa Ding Dong?
Tanopalapa Ding Dong. Now it sounds like a fish special at a local eatery.
Yeah, it sounds pretty delicious.
Yeah, this week, Brian, we continue with the Summer of Song as we get into it with A Star is Born. We talked last week about maybe watching some of the other ones. Spoiler alert, didn't.
You know what? I didn't have a chance to either.
So, no harm, no foul. You know what?
No.
God. Hold on a minute. I have royally fucked us.
Oh no.
No, we're good. We're back.
Okay,
we're back. It was a little problematic there for a second, but I think we got it figured out now.
Gotcha.
All right. So, it's still not perfect, but
Yeah, you know what though?
life rarely is, right?
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
But yeah, so this week we're talking about when this film came out a few years ago, it was a banger.
It really was. Sharon and I went to go see this at the theater, I think twice. And I'll tell you what, before this movie came out, I was really anti Lady Gaga because, I thought that she was just another one of those, those
like pop stars.
Poppies. Yeah, another one of those poppy sensations, a kind of like a wannabe Madonna clone. And then I watched this and I had a whole new appreciation for her as an artist and as a musician.
Yeah.
And I've liked Bradley Cooper for ages.
Right.
I think this is our second Bradley Cooper film.
Yeah.
No, wait, have we done The Hangover?
No.
Okay, so this is our second Bradley Cooper film. And so I've been a fan of Bradley Cooper, but I think that this film, with the exception of Silver Linings Playbook, this is among the most, I think, open and vulnerable performances that Bradley Cooper has ever put out.
Oh yeah. I mean, this guy is
he's amazing.
He's pretty unbelievable. And this film exists because of him. And
yeah, he directed this. He was the driving force behind this.
Right. And it's one of those stories, we talked about this a little bit last week. A Star is Born tells a fairly universal story about the rise and fall and how stars tend to pass one another, right? Like in their rise or descent. And it's a tale as old as entertainment, right? And so it's the kind of story that it's almost like a blank canvas in a way where you can paint whatever the contemporary vibe is onto it.
Yeah, you can tell this story in any era.
Yeah.
And even if it's considered, it's almost like a play, right?
It is.
Where these plays, they come out, they do them, and then you either modernize them or you just do it with a new cast or you do those small updates. And The Star is Born is one of those films that it can do it seamlessly. It's not like, when they tried to reboot Ghostbusters, or, the attempted
Well,
soft reboots or
right.
hard reboots of different films.
Yeah.
I mean, in 10 years, 10, 20, 30 years, we could do A Star is Born again.
Yeah, and the thing
And
is,
it'll feel
like,
the same.
this A Star is Born, even though it's a musical film and even though it's about music, in this
So much
case,
more than that.
right, in this case, it's about sort of like, renegade rock music and pop and that intersection or lack thereof or whatever. It's about, like, this film specifically looks at how, like, genuine artists are sort of molded by the industry into something that they didn't originally intend to be, right?
Right.
But beyond that, it is, I think, deceptively specific, right? Because it's really not specific at all. You can tell this story in any genre, about any two people. The only requirements are that one of them is sort of at the end of their career and the other one is on the rise.
Right.
And maybe not even at the end of their career, but like self-destructive, like in this case.
Yeah,
right?
they're self-destructive to the point where they're going to the end by their own machinations, and not even someone so much on the rise, an unknown or something. You know what I mean? Like honestly, this film would work if, say, Ali was gonna become a hip hop artist.
Right.
It would still work.
Yeah, and it's because I think why this works and why it can work in any age and in any genre is because it is a movie about people. The music is secondary, and so it feels like it's primary, but it's really about the human beings at the heart of it.
Right. Well, I think that the music is its own character as well.
Is, for sure, especially here.
You look at, and I'll give honestly, I don't even feel like this film needs a synopsis. But to throw
if you
one
want
out,
to do it real quick.
Yeah, I'll throw a small one out there. Jackson Maine is the hottest act in country rock, and he just happens to go into a bar and meets the woman of his dreams, singing a song, and he's transfixed. One night together will change their lives forever. As one star rises, another one must fall. And it's tragic. It's very tragic. This film is extremely tragic. I get chills and goosebumps and tears in my eyes every time I watch this film.
And honestly, just even thinking about it, your synopsis is as like thin as it was, right? And it is accurate. But like even that, just thinking about what these two people go through here, it's
in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And in a short amount of time, because they were only maybe together maybe 2-3 years.
Yeah, well, and I think that's also sort of a comment on the industry, an industry that moves so fast. And love does too, because love moves I think the only thing that maybe moves faster than the music industry is love. Yeah.
Because one day you're with someone and then you wake up, you turn around, you've been together for years.
Well, and then you take that concept, right, of how fast love moves, and then the industry itself, and now you put two artists together who are actually like pretty well versed in communicating feelings and dealing with emotion, and now you're moving even faster, right? Because now you're writing music together, and that is a whole other thing.
Yeah, that's a whole different relationship too. Writing,
that's intimacy on a whole other level for sure.
Right. No matter what music you do, no matter what genre of music you do, writing music with another person is a level of intimacy that. Now a long time ago I was a musician, and you can't understand how intimate of a relationship that is until you've done it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're going to fight and fuss and everything with each other, but it's not out of hate or anger or spite. But what's sad is that it does come later when the jealousy kicks in.
Yeah, if one person is, or if anybody's inclined to jealousy, or if someone gets more successful than the other, or whatever, right?
Right, exactly. And a lot of, when I first watched this film, and even Ali kind of accuses him of being jealous.
Mm-hmm.
And in the old versions of the film, from what I can understand, I mean, I haven't watched them all in full, but the jealousy was sort of on display. But I think in this one, it's different.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this one different than the others, because it's not so much that he's jealous of her, it's the fact that he's seeing the pop sensation stuff.
He hates that,
and he hates it.
He hates that she's so good, but she's being turned into this like trite radio diva, right?
Right. And that's what he hates. He loves her, he loves her talent, and he wants more for her.
Yeah, she's being neutered by the label, right?
Right.
Because she was writing beautiful music. They were writing together. They were working on great music, and this manager, who is a sleazebag for sure.
I hate this guy. Like, if I could, I would punch his face off.
Yeah, he's awful.
He's just a terrible, awful human being. And yeah, it's not okay. But yeah, and he's seeing this and he's reacting. She sees it as him being jealous.
Right.
He's looking at her as, you're better than this. And he even tries telling her, you're better than this. But I think that the problem is that his substance abuse hides what he's trying to express to her.
It makes it, I think, probably more difficult for him to express those things because he's always drunk or whatever, you know. And so, like, he's not as articulate in the moments when he needs to be more articulate. He's very articulate in his music and his, like, lyricism. But in everyday communication, he's lacking a little bit. I wanted to talk about, this is like sort of a cinematography type thing, and it'll get us into like a discussion of the film proper. So there are two scenes here that I think are really powerful when it comes to the music stuff, right? You talk about how music is its own character. So like in the opening sequence, when Jackson is playing this arena, right? This like amphitheater. The opening credit sequence, it opens with this like riff, right? This rock and roll, old school rock and roll riff. And you hear that crowd, and like in the theater especially, like you were at this concert.
Yes.
It was the sound was mixed so well. It had so much energy right out of the gate. I was immediately here for this movie.
Absolutely. This is definitely one of those films that if you didn't see it in the theater, you did yourself a disservice.
Yeah, you'll never get the home theater system loud enough to recreate what that was like.
No, you can have the sound bar and the subwoofer and the surround sound and crank that bad boy up to max. It's not going to be the same.
This movie is so powerful because of the dynamics in its soundtrack, right? Like it is loud and powerful and ferocious and rock and roll, and then it is quiet and intimate and vulnerable, and like you can really only feel that if you're surrounded by it, you know?
Right. You're not wrong. And I'll tell you what, it's really just, and I was seeing in the trivia that Bradley Cooper learned how to play guitar through a Willie Nelson, and I can't remember who else it was, and you could tell, like, you could not make me believe that Bradley Cooper has not been playing guitar and singing for years.
No, I know. And when I talk about how I taught myself to play guitar, I wish I could like say that I learned this well, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing bass lessons now for the last few years, and Bradley Cooper makes me look like I'm just playing games. Like he was just amazing. But yeah, and a great job by him as a director for getting us started this heavy.
Yeah, it is boom right in your face. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was when he sends a car for Allie and brings her to his show that night, and they're like taking her through like the tunnels and everything, and you hear the crowd above, right?
Yeah,
that scene, like that momentum,
louder and louder.
That shit was so good, man.
You're there, like you are there,
and the way that the cuts, the way the camera moves and everything, there's this like frenetic quality to that, this like energy that is. Like, and I've never played a big show, you know, but like I've played live music, and there is this like immediate momentum, adrenaline that happens when you're about to go on stage like that.
Right. Like at first you're like, and I don't care how many shows you do, especially that first show, you're like so nervous, you know. And Eminem said it really, really good in Lose Yourself. Your palms start getting sweaty, your stomach starts going in knots, you feel like you're gonna get sick. But then once that light hits you, especially when you're in the front,
Yeah.
when that light hits you, you become a whole different person.
God, it like something just turns on.
Yeah. And it's like you feel like you are, and it doesn't matter if it's your first show or your 101st show. It doesn't matter if there's 5 people in the crowd or hundreds of people. You're everything you ever wanted to be as far as a rock star.
Yeah, and every single moment like that is different and the same in a way that I can't express about anything else.
It's beautiful.
The first time you hit that instrument at the beginning of the night and the last time you hit it at the end, like, it is always the same and always different.
Right.
In a way that I've never experienced in anything else.
And that's why I love doing karaoke so much, because I literally, these people are watching me for this handful of seconds. These eyes are on me. Yeah. I'm telling a story. And when you're doing your own music, it's even better because you are opening up your soul to others and they are walking through.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful feeling. So when he coaxes her to come on stage, God. And
this
takes
is the moment, right?
Step.
Like, this is the fulcrum. And the hesitation, right? Like, I don't know, I don't think so.
I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And then she just goes, and you feel it.
Yeah. And not only that, but like that initial hesitation whenever they start to sing that song, maybe the most beautiful song that's ever been written. It's crazy.
It really is.
How good this song is.
It speaks so much. I mean, every time I hear her sing that, I feel like she's talking directly to me.
And that is the mark of a great artist, right? Is that in these songs. And look, so this is the thing. There are people like this, and it drives me fucking crazy that these people exist. But so, like, she sings this song to him in the parking lot, right, the night before, and it's just something that she had been working on. The next night, when he's
got it composed. He's got it composed. It's ready to go.
This motherfucker walks up and is like, "Hey, I just kind of threw some chords together. I hope it's okay."
It's like, seriously?
And I'm like, this dude just wrote a masterpiece. Like, get the fuck out of here, Bradley Cooper.
After hearing words in a parking lot while you're drunk, putting frozen peas on her head. So the one thing I have to say is, so in the scene that we're talking about, when they're in the parking lot, so Bradley Cooper, he finishes that show. He's looking for a place to drink. And his driver just happens to go down the street. And this is the beauty of this film and the writing.
Yeah.
Is that there's a lot of times where we feel like, yeah, saw that coming. But no, it was literally a happenstance. Hey, that looks like a bar. I'm getting out here.
Yeah, and what's great about it is this is a bar that Jackson Maine would almost never go in.
Yeah, you would think. But even when he's like, you know, Allie's friend Ramon, who is, because Allie's singing in a gay bar and it's drag night, and he even goes, "Hey, I don't think this is your scene. Does it serve alcohol?"
Right, that's the
then
thing,
it's
right?
my scene.
Yeah,
and that's what really endears me to Jackson.
Yeah, in spite of the substance abuse.
In spite of the substance abuse, and in spite of he looks like, the country singing, I don't even want to go as call him a country singing redneck, but he does have that look of this super macho country singer.
Right.
And he's just like, I don't care who's in here. Do you serve alcohol? Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, and then that's when he hears Allie sing for the first time, and it's beautiful.
It is very beautiful. Now, this song doesn't really get me, but I mean,
well, this is the French song, right?
Yeah, it's that French song, and apparently Bradley Cooper heard her sing this at a concert and insisted that it be in the movie. Yeah, and even when he goes back and he meets her, and he's just so comfortable.
Yeah. And
I think that that's an element of someone who's lived with fame for a long time. He's just comfortable being around regular people. Because you notice the people that his entourage and whatnot, they're not like music industry people. They're regular people.
Right.
And you know, even when the one queen comes up to him and asks him to sign her fake boobs, he's so cool about it and so happy to do it. And then they ask him to sing, and it's almost like he feels relieved being around regular people.
Yeah.
No pressure. And I swear that maybe it's time to let the old ways.
So I wanted to
that
talk
song
about,
gets me.
I want to talk about this song. This song was written by one of my favorite musicians, favorite working musicians right now. His name is Jason Isbell. Mm-hmm. And he's the credited songwriter on this track on Maybe It's Time to Let the Old Ways Die.
Yeah.
And
such a beautiful
and
song.
Jason Isbell has a similar story, I think, to what Jackson Maine has, but one of like redemption as opposed to just like the fall, you know.
Right. Jason
Isbell, he was in the band the Drive By Truckers for a while. He was an alcoholic. He would drink like a 750 of Jack Daniels during every show that they played, and just getting blasted, you know. It was like not
Jesus.
good. And he fell in love with this woman named Amanda Shires, who's also a musician. She played violin in their band, and she told him, she was like, "Look, like if you want to be with me, you got to get off of it," you know. And he did, right? And he hasn't touched it since then. And
That's
I
awesome.
think that's the power of music and love and all of that, right? To be able to save someone that you love, but it's also all baked into that song, right? Like,
yeah.
And it's channeled in such a beautiful way. I thought, what a
that
great
song brings tears to my eyes.
It's beautiful, and
it really is.
There are a handful of songs in this flick that are as good as any other song anywhere, right? That's one of them.
I would put that song up against anything in the top 40 right now in any genre, because it is so beautiful and it's very, very relevant.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it is time to let the old ways of thinking and behaving, it's time to let that shit go.
I know, yeah.
I
thought when I looked it up, I thought that like maybe Ryan Johnson had been the songwriter on this one, you know, like he had written a song for The Last Jedi, but but then it was Justin Isbell.
That was good.
Can you imagine The Last Jedi, right? And Rey comes into the throne room and Kylo Ren is like playing this song on acoustic guitar.
And you get like Supreme Leader Snoke just brings out his lighter.
And then all of a sudden Rey's like, God, okay, like if this had just been a speech, I could have said no, but this is a pretty good song.
Yeah, she was like, you know what? Maybe I can turn to the dark side. Maybe it is time to let the Jedi way die.
Yeah, but now but Shallow, I'm with you. Like Shallow
and Let the Old Ways Die are like just two of the greatest songs ever written on the planet. And so. After that, he wants to go for another drink, and he takes her to a cop bar. And that's where we start to see just, like, we've already seen bits of how fiery and how strong Allie is. But when she comes to Jackson's defense, when the cop is just harassed, like, I mean, the thing is that I don't even want to go so far as say harassing him, but he's kind of being that drunk fan that doesn't realize they're overstepping.
Right.
And she just drills him without a second's thought.
She lets him hear about it.
Lets him hear about it. And lets his face hear about it, absolutely. And then, of course, he rushes her to a grocery store, gets some frozen peas. She even gets raw at Lunel for taking his picture. Yeah. Because, you know, he's just trying to be a regular guy. And that's when, she just starts to sing a couple of bars of this song. And then, next night, so do some chords together.
That's so funny to me.
It is probably not all that good, but, you know, I'm going to sing it anyway, so.
I don't know if you heard, so they released Shallow as a single before this movie came out, right?
I think Shallow was a single from the soundtrack.
Yeah,
so
right. But it was released just before. It was. I remember hearing it.
It might have been. I don't remember. I don't listen really to terrestrial radio.
And so I heard this song for the first time, like maybe a week or two before I saw the film, and I was immediately moved by it. Even out of the context of the movie itself, there's that It's first of all the song does not really follow. It does follow a traditional pop song like cadence, right? Of like verse chorus, bridge, like whatever, right? All of that. But there's like that breakdown in the middle where she's just like owing, right? Like the big build, the musical build, and then like when she crashes in with that final I'm off the
Oh,
deep end, right? Like
yep.
that's
Oh,
that shit.
the
She's unreal.
vocalization.
Yo, this chick is unreal. We don't have to talk about how good Lady Gaga is, but she is unbelievable.
She is a freaking force
Yeah.
and a great actress too. I'm like, honestly, I almost want to watch House of Gucci if I didn't like, but I'm not because the
Yeah.
subject matter doesn't really interest me.
Yeah.
But so once she comes on stage to sing, she's like an instant sensation. And her father, who's played like, there's no weak links
Yeah.
really in this movie. Once again, we got another film where there's no weak links. I kind of wish that they had showed more of her friend Ramon, but I
Mm-hmm.
think him sort of fading out is kind of interesting because it really does show how the music industry is forcing her away from herself. So
Yeah.
Ramon being gone was actually really, really masterfully done.
It's all consuming, right? And that's another aspect of this story that's like as old as time. You know, like you lose touch with those things if you're not actively nourishing those relationships.
Yeah,
Um,
they fade.
or nurturing them, I should say. If they
Yeah,
do, you lose sight because when you're just like growing up in the neighborhood together, like of course like that's your best friend. But when you're like when the world is your neighborhood, it's a completely different game.
right. And Andrew Dice Clay, he wasn't even like the Andrew Dice Clay that I grew up
No,
with.
no,
Totally different guy. And then even now, granted, Sam Elliott is always Sam Elliott, and
yeah,
every Sam
and but
Elliott
so
is
good,
Sam Elliott's, but it's always really good. Like he's not being Sam Elliott in like a kids movie
right?
where it doesn't work,
You
but
know, there.
he just works in this.
One thing that I really love about this movie is how many wizened old pros there are, right? Like we have these characters that give advice to Jackson at different times, or to Allie, right? Sam Elliott
Mm-hmm.
plays one of them. Dave Chappelle plays the other one.
Dude, and Dave Chappelle is so great. Like he's funny without being funny.
Dave Chappelle is excellent in this part, and surprisingly so. Like crushed
Absolutely.
it. It was one of the first times I'd seen Dave Chappelle in years. Whenever this came out.
Yeah, exactly. Because
I think he
I
had
think this
maybe
was probably
just started his Netflix run with the new stand-up stuff.
right, but this was the first time we saw him on screen, like in a film.
Yeah,
And even Eddie Griffin was in his space.
yeah,
Like nobody felt out of place.
yeah. Yeah,
And
it's so good. I mean, I don't know what to say about this thing. It's one of my favorite movies of the last 5 or 10 years, probably.
I agree 100%. It's definitely probably among the best that have come out. Like honestly, I think as much as we've talked about the appeal of the MCU and all the emotions that it stirs, but I'll tell you what, with no real exception that I can think of off the top of my head, and that includes my love for Black Panther.
Yeah,
I think I'm probably gonna watch A Star Is Born before most MCU films, just because it's something different than what we've been getting
yeah,
theatrically. B, it's a story about people, not over the top characters, but people and talent and love and struggle.
yeah. We should talk about the back end of this thing where the substance abuse starts to get a little out of hand,
Yeah, we
and
start seeing a lot of it even at the beginning, where at first she's having a good time, she's starstruck, but then when she realizes that they have feelings for each other, that starstruck mentality leaves, and she starts to set boundaries right away.
mm-hmm.
She looks right at that motorcycle and goes, "I will never get on that when you're drinking,
Yeah,
ever."
yeah,
And but she's very insightful in how, and I think her insight of him explains why she's so patient with his substance abuse, because when she asks him about himself and he can't really talk about it, she
um,
even says, "No one asks you about you."
yeah,
And I think that's why she's like, she loves him, but it's the fact that she understands this about him, which is why she tolerates a lot of that substance abuse for as long as she does.
Yeah. Let's talk about Jackson's hearing thing.
I think that's another big part of his substance abuse, because the hearing, for anyone that's a musician, you got to be able to hear. And him losing it is making it so that he can't do the one thing that he loves. And I think that's another reason why his substance abuse is so heavy.
This is, I think, an interesting choice to include something like this, right, in the film, because you often hear, I think most recently, I remember hearing about like Eric Clapton, who felt like he couldn't play the guitar anymore because of like just his fingers, like his the mechanics of it were like he wasn't as fast or whatever, right, or precise. And I think that when somebody gets into the music industry and they're successful, it's usually from a pretty young age, and it is their entire lives. If you're gonna make it as a musician, then you've been doing it from the day that you could, right? And you've been pursuing it like religiously, right? And then for that to like start to threaten to leave you in some way would be like being left by God, you know, like.
Yeah.
Like to lose your hearing as a musician and singer, like that's crazy. Like that is like
that
is an unjust turn in the universe, right?
That is a cruel twist of fate. It's like an athlete when they wake up one day and they realize they just can't do it anymore.
Right, and so the tension between him and Allie has nothing to do with, it does have something to do with jealousy. There is a resentment there because he sees a woman at the beginning of her journey, right? And he sees that he is largely responsible for that too, that he brought her to this place. But at the same time, he's watching his own journey start to end.
And then worse yet, he's seeing the industry turn her,
and the industry leave him and leave the kinds of guys like he is, right?
Yeah, leave him completely behind. We see that when he's supposed to be singing Pretty Woman at the Grammys, and at the last minute they hire somebody else,
some young kid,
and then he's seeing her turn into a pop sensation, and he's been warning her against this, but she just falls deeper and deeper and deeper into it,
right?
And
like
of course, and who isn't going to fall into it?
He's, I think, at that part of his career where he's been around long enough that he's not the cool new thing, but he's also not like Paul McCartney level yet. Like he hasn't been around long enough to be a legacy guy yet, you know?
Right. He's been around for a long time, but it's kind of like when you play BitLife. You've been in the public eye for 20 years, but now you are no longer famous.
Yeah, and I think that he recognizes that not only like he's clinging to this because he understands that because of hearing loss and et cetera, and the changing landscape of the music industry, the odds that he's going to have a second wave is diminishing, right?
Right, and he's losing hope, and he's seeing her.
Because what is Jackson Maine without music, right? And I think that more than anything leads to like his ultimate choice, right?
Right, yeah. And not to mention the fact that the industry is trying to pull her away from him.
Yeah, like if you're Jackson Maine and you lose music, all you have left is Allie, right? Because he loves her. I believe that he loves her.
Oh, he loves her so much. Like he adores her so much. He's been in love with her since the moment he heard her sing.
Yeah.
And you see how at first that manager is very cordial to him. And he just starts to slowly start to get contemptuous.
Yeah.
And then he starts to turn passive aggressive and hostile. And when he says what he says to Jackson, when Jackson makes that ultimate choice, I remember being in the theater just bawling my eyes out.
Yeah.
Like, how can another human being treat another human being this way?
Yeah, because he wants to see her, right? And they that whole bit is so tough. And then like I think maybe the worst part of the end of this movie is that what's happening.
Yeah.
Long before it happens. And the movie does not take any shortcuts on that either. Like they make you sit there in that discomfort and in that dread.
And suffer from it. And with Allie, when she finds him,
oh my God,
she is so broken.
That's so like here's another like cinematic moment, right, where the flashing lights in that scene, like when we go back to the house to find him, and the way that the scene is just dark, and all the only light are the police lights, right, or the ambulance lights. And then, like you said, when she finds him, she's just broken. She just falls apart, and it's so. I mean, like, what can you even say, dude? Like, it's so good.
Yeah, and the scene that she shares with Sam Elliott, her scenes with just her and Sam Elliott, I believe there's only two.
Yeah.
It's the one when she and Jackson first, Jackson's passed out before they have sex, and she doesn't really talk. And in the scene after Jackson's gone, she doesn't really talk. But it's just the presence of these two, and her presence hangs with Sam Elliott.
Yeah.
And even in Sam Elliott, I think this is some of his best, because he's still portraying that rough, tough guy, tough Western guy. But you can see that vulnerability and how much he loved his brother.
Yeah.
And this
and
movie is so hard to watch sometimes.
How much he loved his brother, but also how much he knew what was going to happen,
eventually.
Right? Like he did the best that he could for all those years to protect that man and give him the support that he needed, and in the end he knew that it wasn't going to be enough before it wasn't enough,
Right. I think he had already said goodbye to him.
Yeah.
But now it's real. Like, how many times have we sort of in our minds said goodbye to somebody?
Yeah.
But then when they're finally gone, it makes it, in a lot of ways, it makes it worse.
Yeah.
And then when she sings to him at the end, and she for the first time has his name.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, I think that even if she does, like, let's just say 5-10 years down the line, even if she does, like, remarry, number one, I don't think she does, but even if she does, she's still known as Allie Maine.
You know what's crazy to me?
I think
I'm glad that you brought that up about her last name, because I'm struck now about this is something the movie doesn't really go into much.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't go into like how media covers music. Much. It does a little bit, but we got more of that last week, right, with Popstar. But in our world, I feel like she would have been taken to the cleaners for taking his last name after his death, right? Like, to claim that after that, like, she would have been seen as like trying to capitalize on his suicide and all of this, and people would have reamed her out on social media and everything. And I'm glad that the movie doesn't go that route, right? Because I think that I see it as a sincere tribute to him,
right?
And I don't see it as something capitalizing on it,
No.
Because she, as much as I said I believe he loved her, and she absolutely loved him too. She was beyond like being starstruck, right? Like, she loved him.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the truth. I've seen clips of the old Stars Born films. This was probably the only time that I really saw these characters love each other.
Yeah. I believe there's a reason that everybody wanted Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga to date in real life, Like, they sold it. Their chemistry is out of this planet.
Their chemistry is ungodly amazing. And this is once again the power of their talent.
Yeah. These two are at the top of their game. And it's crazy to me that Lady Gaga, that we don't see her in more stuff, but I think that she's pretty selective in which projects she likes to do, especially in acting. And she can be, right? Because her moneymaker is the music. And her music has evolved a lot too over the years, and her more recent stuff has been much more along the lines of this stuff, right? Like, she had that whole record, it was called Joanne, and it came out like a year or two before A Star Is Born, but it was definitely more in the line of like this kind of music, and she's getting older, and we tend to settle down a little bit, you know what I mean?
Well, I think that also, maybe like in the early part of her career, because right now, she's 36 years old. She just turned 36. And when she first came out, she had to do something that really set her apart,
right,
to get that attention. Now she doesn't have to do any of that anymore.
Yeah.
Now she can just do, like, I think she's always done what she wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
But now she can really sort of like what Madonna did. Madonna, when she first came out, she did stuff that was kind of outrageous, outlandish with her look.
Yeah.
And then as the years went about, she just started to do her own thing, the way she wanted to do it. Sorry, for whatever reason, my computer decided to make it's doing its cooling off thing, even though you would think with liquid cooling, you wouldn't have to do that.
I was going to play a little bit of the performance of Shallow from the Oscars.
Please do.
The live performance, which I thought was just as good as anything else, which is also telling, right?
Wow, right.
I mean, that riff too, right?
It's already hitting me.
Yeah. Even the way that this was filmed, did you see this performance?
No, I did not.
It's so clearly like orchestrated by somebody that completely understands the movie, right? Because the camera begins behind the curtain, right? Instead of facing the curtain. Okay. And it's a moving camera. It's like a tracking camera.
Okay.
And so you have a line of musicians behind the curtain, and they're all like, these are all the acoustic guitars. And as the curtain rises and they walk out, the camera like follows them out, and you see like all of the lights, and you see the audience, and just a single piano, and wow. Like it's filmed like part of the movie. You know what I mean? And it's a live performance. It's beautiful. And then it like swings out, and Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper are sitting on the front row, and they stand up and walk up on stage together.
That is awesome.
Tell me something, girl. Are you happy in this modern world? Or do you need more? Is there something else you're searching for?
I mean, even in this performance, the way that they look at each other is like, yeah, these people love each other in real life. Like, they may never date or whatever, but they're in love with each other.
Yeah.
You don't write something like this together and do something like this together and not have that kind of connection.
Absolutely.
And in the bad times, I fear myself.
That line, though, in the bad times, I fear myself, like, that's writing right there.
It really is. Oh, my God.
Tell me something, boy.
And she is just unreal, dude. Like, it's effortless, you know?
Aren't you tired trying to fill that void? Or do you need more? Ain't it hard keeping it so hardcore? I'm falling.
And the camera, this is also what's great. So the camera stays behind the piano, like it never faces the stage. It always sees the audience behind them the entire time.
In the bad times I fear myself. I'm off the deep end, watch as I dive in. I'll never leave the ground.
Yeah.
Crash through the surface where they can't hurt us. We're far from the shallow now. In the shallow.
They are unreal, man.
In the shallow.
And then like Lady Gaga gets to have her moment where she like just bangs it out, you know what I mean? Because they've got the piano up there, and she's playing it, so. You should go watch this bit. Like, it's too good because then like Bradley like loses his like mic stand and joins her on the bench on the piano to sing the last little bit of it. But the thing that struck me watching it this time is that the camera never moved from behind the piano, so you could always see the full theater behind them.
Oh, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
That is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, and also freaking Lady Gaga's a rock star, dude. Like, yeah.
He is a freaking, like, musical, like, world heavyweight.
Yeah, if you ever get to hear any of the... In fact, you should maybe go down... If you haven't heard her on Howard Stern, just go down the YouTube rabbit hole with all of her live performances from Howard Stern. It is... They're all... Like, you'll hear a bunch of songs that you've heard on the radio that you thought, meh, Lady Gaga. But she's playing them on piano and acoustically, and, man, it's a whole other game.
Well, you know, acoustic music, period, is so
it's fragile,
powerful.
right? It's vulnerable.
It's very vulnerable. It's very, like, you don't have all of the... Honestly, and I'm not trying to be funny when I say what I'm about to say, but acoustic music, I think, is as close to just being naked without being naked, you know? Because when you've got the
You can't hide behind anything, that's for sure.
You really can't. There's nothing you... And that's why I see it as being, like... That's like musical nudity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not many people can do it. So when you can definitely tell a real musician when they can do stuff.
Yeah. Or a real
acoustic.
Storyteller. They may not even be like the best musician, right?
Right.
But when they allow themselves to be hung out like that,
right,
without hiding underneath a bunch of other bullshit, like they're inviting you in, right? Like,
well, that's why that Nirvana MTV Unplugged performance, that night of performance is so iconic.
Yeah.
Because Kurt Cobain, who traditionally is not a great singer, and you know, a lot of his, you know, he doesn't do anything fancy with chord progressions and he just plays. But in that time, he's telling you a story, he's letting you in.
Yeah.
And like I said, not everyone can do that.
Yeah. There's most of my favorite musicians practice in the acoustic arena, you know? At least some of the time. And, you know, I think that like Bruce Springsteen, I think some of his best work is when it's just him and an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
A bunch of those guys, you know, or like Lady Gaga with her just a piano, you know.
I'm actually contemplating getting myself an acoustic bass just to play.
Yeah.
Because there's just something about having that acoustic that you can just... There's just something about it. Man. So I definitely want to take a minute to get into... We talked a little bit about the manager character.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to talk... Rafi, his name is Rafi Gavrin. He played the character... I'm trying to find the character's name here. Rez. I wonder, like, how hard must it be to play a character this horrible?
Dude, he's so shitty. But, like, the movie needed a villain that wasn't Bradley Cooper, right?
It wasn't Bradley Cooper, yes.
And so that's important because Bradley Cooper is also, like, by and large, like, his story is tragic, but he is not very likable for a lot of this movie.
I think that there's aspects of his behavior where I think for me, I could get where he was coming from.
I do too.
Even though he wasn't doing it in the right way.
He made shitty choices, but he never came across as a shitty person. Like
No.
Like I tend to make this argument, like we all are just doing the best we can. And like for as broken as he is, like he's just doing the best he can.
Right.
And you wish he could do a little better, but...
Yeah, but he's not like some characters that because I mean, like I said, now to be fair, I have not seen the other versions of the film, but from how I've sort of seen, you know, from the clips that I've seen, like the Chris Christopherson, Barbra Streisand version, he's very jealous, and very angry, and he's not like that with her.
Yeah, I think that these two people. One thing that makes the film so compelling is that they're fully realized characters, and that means that all of their motivations and all of their actions are incredibly nuanced, and they're all complicated, right?
Right.
Like he's a little jealous, sure, but he's also a little afraid and a little like powerless and a little like hopeless.
He sees himself being pushed away.
Right,
from her.
and so it's not just that he's jealous, right? It's that his jealousy is informed by this myriad of other complicated things.
Right, and I think that that's more in line with where we are as a society, where we as men are allowed to feel vulnerable. We're allowed to feel, and our feelings don't just have to be put out there.
And this dude is just
toxic way,
drowning his feelings in booze, you know, and like because he can't be seen as weak or whatever.
Right, and it's really heartbreaking. You know, when he makes that decision, because you're really rooting for him. You know, when he goes to rehab and he's stronger, he's happier, he's better.
There's some moment in there, and I don't know that I can point at the moment, but I think everybody maybe comes to it at their own time, when you realize as a viewer that there's no way that he's gonna survive this movie, and that makes that march to the final act all the more painful.
Yeah,
and like
there is no happy ending.
And when he has that the situation at the award ceremony, and
which is very hard to watch.
It's so hard to watch, and man, like, and what an interesting choice to do that in this film as opposed to a number of other things that he could have done. You know what I mean?
How he could have behaved.
How he could have like hit rock bottom, so to speak.
Because he's trying to be there for her, but he's just he's lost.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it hurt even more, because you're disappointed. You're disappointed that this is what happens. And to Andrew Dice Clay's credit, he is us. How could you do this to her?
Yeah.
And he's just like,
yeah, man. This movie was a cultural moment, unlike a lot of you don't see movies that aren't big studio like Marvel movies become such a cultural moment, but this movie had a moment.
Yeah, and here we are 4 years later, and this movie is still at the top of people's favorites.
Yeah, I'm in love with it still, for sure.
I could watch this. I could watch this movie once, twice a year, and never get tired of it.
Yeah, and I still listen to the music all the time.
Oh, absolutely. You know what's funny? You know how you got a banger of a soundtrack? When after seeing the movie in theaters, Brian Tan goes right to the Apple store and downloads the soundtrack.
Yeah, for sure.
And we listened to it the whole way home.
Yeah. I think I did the exact same thing. I might have just pulled it up on Spotify or whatever, but we listened to it all the way home. Yeah, beautiful stuff. A Star is Born, Brian, was made on a $36 million budget, and it grossed $436.2 million at the box office.
Still don't seem like enough.
Still doesn't seem like enough, and it is sporting currently a 90% on the tomato meter, which is about right.
79% audience score.
And that's just because people don't like Lady Gaga.
I think so. And that's really depressing.
Yeah.
Because she's amazing in this film.
She is. Let's maybe get Bartender Smiley in here. I feel like this is just a freaking...
It's the right time.
I also feel like this is just a formality for this one, but here we go.
We all right.
The Plotaholics rating system for the movies is a pretty simple system. Basically, they rate movies based on how many shots it takes to get through them. So if you got a good movie and you get through it all the way sober, then it takes 0 shots to get through the movie. And then if you got a really bad movie, then it could take up to 5 shots to get through the whole thing. I think you can try to figure out the middle part yourself. So what can I get you?
Well, Brian, I can't imagine a world where you needed to get me any shots for this one.
I needed nothing but a box of tissue.
Yeah, it was, that's it for sure. Yep, no booze, no shots, no nothing. This is a 0 shot movie. It's perfect. I have no complaints about this flick at all.
Absolutely not. It knows what it is. It hits you in your feels from the word go. It does everything right.
Yes.
And it never stops.
I don't know what else to say about it.
There's nothing else that we can say.
Yeah. If you've never seen this version of A Star is Born, what are you doing with your life? Go check it out.
Yeah. Why are you going to do that to yourself?
Yeah. Next week, Mr. Tan, we'll be watching a movie that I don't think you've ever seen. It's called Once. And
I know not what this is.
Yeah, it's another it's like an indie flick. Another sort of singer-songwriter-y type music story. Okay. It was written.
When did it come out? 2007?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay, Irish romantic musical drama.
That's it.
Cool.
And it stars Glenn Hansard and Marketa Erglova, who are the musicians behind the band. I think they're called the Swell Season. And they also won the Oscar this year for Best Original Song for Falling Slowly, which is a song that you have probably heard somewhere along the way, even if you haven't seen this movie. But it's beautiful, man. Like, it's another superhuman story. Not superhuman story, but very human
there's no
story.
Superhumans.
Right. It's a very human story. And here, instead of like one star rises, one star falls, you have two musicians who are like struggling to find their way, who want to find a way to make a record, right? Like, for no other reason than to create something.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and it really is a beautiful story, and it's beautiful because it's like an exploration of the feelings that can come out of making something with someone, something we've talked about today, right? And what that looks like, that like romantic, there's no other word to describe it, right? Like, whatever it is, whoever it is, if you make something with someone, there's a romantic undertone to that, right? No matter who it is, no matter what gender it is, no matter what your sexuality is, if you enter into a collaboration with someone to create music or to create film or to create whatever, right? Like, there is something romantic in that.
Absolutely.
Capital R romantic, right? And
absolutely.
And so this film sort of explores those emotions that these two strangers develop for each other over the course of writing and making this music, and then what happens once that project is over and all of that. But no, it's beautiful. I think that you'll enjoy it.
I can't wait. I'm looking to find places where it's streaming. Looks like I'll be able to watch that on the Amazon.
Nice. That's nice.
Gonna have to invest a couple of bucks into that. That's okay.
Yeah, not too bad.
It's
it is. I would absolutely say that it's worth it. But we'll be talking Once next week, and then we'll follow that up with Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story.
Walk Hard.
And I'm
a little bit of comedy. A
little levity after that. Yeah, after the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
But
so I like that we're gonna have sort of like a comedy musical sandwich with a little bit of the heavy in the middle. I like that.
For sure. But yeah, man, we'll get into all of that next week. Make sure that you're rating, reviewing, subscribing, passing us on, sharing us with your friends, making us sandwiches, sending us flowers, anything you'd like.
I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, but anyway, y'all have a good week, and we will be back at it again next week.
Take care, guys.
Take a trip with us to Newbar. Just promise not to drink the goo. If you get sucked into the Matrix, we will sing the phone for you.
Do you believe in fate?
But every movie has a plot hole, and every hole gets filled somehow. Whiskey, wine, or blue milk. Just don't cut me off right now. We're the Plotaholics, a breakfast club of two. We're the Plotaholics, ripping plots apart for you.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.